I worked as a volunteer at the daycare program over at Silver Oak Heights. It's really a nursing home. And that's how I met Derek. He would talk all day about his adventures in the Navy. Well-travelled he was, let me tell you. His diabetes had put him in a wheelchair, but by God, he was sharp as a tack. And then I fell down the stairs and, Jared, my husband, was diagnosed with melanoma. We had a shocker of a year, didn't we, darling?
Yeah.
And even though I'd stopped my voluntary work, I still loved going to Silver Oak. I'd go down, pop in for a visit, maybe massage feet, and I'd set all the ladies' hair on a Friday. I loved them all, but we had a special bond with Derek, didn't we, darling?
Yeah.
Derek didn't have any family, you see, or not anyone that could look after him or speak on his behalf. So we'd visit on Fridays and...
Left, right, straight.
He'd order us from his wheelchair. And we'd go to the chemist, the bank, and we'd always stop in at the florist down on Murchison Street because he liked to look at the flowers and flirt with all the girls in the shop.
He had a heart problem.
But we didn't know that, darling, did we? He was from that generation, you know, stoic. Sometimes he couldn't feel his legs, sometimes his arms would go numb.
Yeah, on account of the diabetes.
Never said a thing, didn't want to cause a fuss. And of course the staff at Silver Oak liked him and they'd make him a midnight toastie, but they couldn't see that something was going awfully wrong.
It sure was,
yeah. And then we went to visit one Friday and didn't like the look of his left thumb.
Not good.
Mm-hmm. We asked why he hadn't been sent to the GP and they were apparently waiting for his next visit. 2 weeks away. And things must have gotten worse because the night nurse sent Derek to the hospital and guess what? They did nothing and they sent him back to Silver Oak.
It's not all right.
And we didn't find out what happened till afterwards because we're not family. So I was forced to raise a fuss. I was always having to raise a fuss to find out what was happening. I mean, the home would cite privacy this, privacy that, but they weren't even telling Derek what was going on. And I told you he was sharp as a tack, eh? Well, you know, he'd understand, but no one said anything. And I finally found out that, you know, he was on some list to see a vascular specialist, but that, you know, it wasn't good enough. By then, the poor guy was in agony, and it seemed obvious to me, and I'm no nurse, that it was gangrene. So I wheeled him right out of Silver Oak, and I got him straight in to see the specialist.
She said she was his daughter.
Yeah. Well, they admitted him right away. They took him to Palmy and cut off his thumb. He was fine immediately after, but then, then he began to slip. Nice doctor came to see us. She was very direct, kind, but direct. And she said to us, "You do realise that this will be the end. We can't do anything more for him." And, Jared and I were there. And we said goodbye. And I kissed him on the face. And then he just slowly and graciously passed. And what rankles me is that the nursing home didn't pick up on his thumb. You know, they should have taken him to see the GP and not waited for that visit. But when you're old,
you just don't exist. For medical people, if you're old, you're just not a priority. My mum was a very proud person. To be bedridden and have someone come and change nappies must have been humiliating. She developed this rash that wouldn't respond to treatment, and the nursing home tried to get a specialist to come and have a look. I saw the rash for myself. It looked very angry, and Mum must have been in a lot of pain. I even offered the specialist extra if he'd come and have a look. But he wouldn't. It's almost like she was too old to give her the time of day. A rash is no big deal, but it is. For someone in so much pain, it is. The nursing home washed their hands of the whole thing, saying they tried. But how is that enough?
When you first came to this retirement home, I was away at a Kaimahi conference. And you just turned up, told everyone you was my uncle, and moving in.
I bribed everyone with chocolates.
And all that, Charm. You've got everyone eating out of the palm of your hand. I really love working here, you know, and not just because I get to look after my uncle. We have good relationships with all our residents. It's like a whānau, really.
We have fun. Tell them what we did last month with Hone. Go on, tell them. Tell them. It's funny.
Well, Hone's one of our residents here. He's a hard case, man. Parkinson's. Shakes like a leaf, but he's got a wicked sense of humour. Anyway, he tells Gretchen, our cook, that he's allergic to cauliflower. Anyway, Gretchen knows not to listen to any of that sort of tittle from our residents, so she just gives him the stink eye and puts a big-ass spoonful on his plate.
He made this one here put red spots on his face and arms with her nail polish. We called Gretchen in to view Hone's condition. And poor woman, she practically had a heart attack.
And we got into so much trouble for doing that. Oh my gosh.
Just 'cause you're old doesn't mean to say you don't want to have a good laugh.
That's right. I have a sense of style. Look at you. You're always the best dressed man in Sunnybrook. Tāhua. Can barely cope, but you still iron your shirts, cuffs, and put a suit on to go to town.
Who else will bring chocolates for the girls here?
E koro, you get dressed up to ride that scooter through the corridors. Who does that?
I like doing things on my own. Always did.
I have to watch you though now, so you don't hurt yourself. But underwear? Really? Do you have to iron your underwear?
It's not worth doing if you don't do it well. I'm always prepared.
Haere atu ra e te rangatira rongo nui o te rohe. Haere atu ra, haere ra, haere.
I miss Mum.
Yes, well, you would. You two looked after her 24/7, you know?
We went up to the Urupa this morning to visit Mum. And all the daffodils were out, finally.
Yeah.
Ka puta mai ngā puti puti. Puti puti kane hana e.
See, you're still looking after her.
She was a beautiful, strong and hard-working woman, our Mum. You know, she quietly raised us 10 kids, 8 of her own and 2 whāngai. She was always working really hard, you know, cooking, cleaning, gardening. And when Dad died, she just carried on being really active for another 15 years, eh? Mm-hmm. And then one day she was out picking puha, and she had a stroke.
You know, the doctor said that she only had a couple of months, and, well, obviously we obviously we took her home so she could be with her whānau. And in her last days, yeah, but out of nowhere, she come out of her coma. She come out of her coma.
Yeah, she was a real tough cookie.
Yeah. Well, bit by bit, she carried on living, and we all got used to looking after her and taking her to the toilet, feeding her, hoisting her up, and washing her. And we couldn't take her to the rest home. We talked about it, but it was you. She said, my sister said, Mum stays home no matter what. And you were right.
Yeah, well, everyone helped out.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially this, my brother-in-law, you know. Yeah. Feeding her took about 30 minutes while he would sit there and he'd spoon feed her one at a time. And then he'd tuck her in and, well, he'd change her, you know. And he even knew what her favourite chore was.
Well, I loved her. In any ways, giving care is not just a woman's privilege. Auntie Betty's son's down the road. They still look after her.
Yeah, well, they say that, you know, it takes a village to raise a child, but...
Aye, but we Māori know that it takes a pā
Yeah.
to care for kaumātua too. Yeah. The thing is that we don't live in the pā anymore.
No. Yeah, but we have our whānau.
Ah.
Yeah, and when Mum was in the hospital, we had all our aunties and our uncles, all the kids, you know, everybody visited, sometimes 15 people a night. And,
Yeah, I think we scared the hospital staff a bit. Yeah, I mean, they have their policies, but they weren't really prepared for how staunch we were about Mum's care. So,
yeah, but that's aroha. Yeah, that's aroha. Yeah, well, I mean, we know that.
if we want to keep our tikanga alive, well, then...
Yeah, and we need to pass these values down to our whānau, you know? In our mokopuna, so we need to lead by example.
And I know everyone had to sacrifice something,
Yeah.
but
Hey, we wouldn't have it any
Yeah.
other way.
I always saw it as a privilege. Always.
You know, we're not a perfect whānau. We all have our rariraris and all, but we keep the machinery going. And even though this was happening in between, our older brother, he had a stroke. And we had to say to ourselves that we've got to stick together, keep together, and hold on.
Should everybody be so lucky? Our children were all overseas. And the relatives are all busy, you know, living their own lives. No one thought I needed help. You see, my husband was 20 years older than me. And I guess everybody thought she'll be right. I don't think it didn't make a difference that I was younger. It certainly helped cope with all the heavy stuff. It's just the period before he died was awful. And I had no help. We live an hour away from town. I have to drive there to get all the groceries. Somebody has to buy the food. I didn't want to leave him. I'd wait till he was napping. Fly out, jump in the car, drive like a maniac, rush round the supermarket, hurry back, always worried, just worried. Neighbours said they'd come and sit with him, some of the locals, you know, but that never happened. Everyone's too busy in the middle of the day. Don't get me wrong, I'd do it all again if I had to, I really, really would. It's just because I was young, or I should say younger. The DHB was saying to me, oh, you can have someone come and care for his personal needs. And I say to them, well, why hasn't anybody come? And they'd say to me, you're there. Of course I'm there. I'm there every day doing my best. And is that your answer? Is that the best you can do?
Easy on the sugar, Dad.
Where were we? Yes. So they found Mum unconscious. By the time I got there, they brought her around. Mum said, I wish I'd gone. I won't have known anything. Everything was signed, DNA, but they just ignored it, or didn't see it like it wasn't there. The next time, I was adamant. She's 92. Do not touch her. They saw in her head. This was in the rest home. Then they sent her to the hospital in Whangarei.
Where I live. By the time I reached, they'd shoved things down her throat. I went in and I said, please, take those things out. She doesn't want to be revived. One patronising ass goes,
Language.
if we don't do anything, dear, she will die. I said, yes, we know. These are her wishes.
I was away in Dubai for work, so I rang Marina to make sure they don't resuscitate her.
It was really hard watching them do this to my nana.
The frustrating thing was that the hospital kept asking for signed letters. I kept telling them it was on top of her records.
We followed the rules. We aren't troublemakers, you know, but they wouldn't believe us. Then they found the letter. Everyone said they were sorry. I know mistakes get made, but so I've forgiven them. But I can't forget the look on my nana's face. That's hard.
At least you got to discuss your nana's preferences with her. I regret we didn't have that conversation, and then, of course, it was too late. Mum had dementia for 14 years before she died. She had no quality of life at all. My siblings and I decided we wouldn't provide treatment if her condition became life-threatening. I must say, though, I found it a bit hard to say, do not resuscitate, and I didn't really know what Mum would have wanted. But I felt it would be cruel to bring her back to live like a vegetable.
She had dementia for 14 years. It's not your fault you didn't know your mum's wishes before she died. In my case, I didn't know he was dying. The doctors told me that he was going to have to take antibiotics for the rest of his life. that the infection was probably incurable, that it wasn't looking good. I kind of heard what they were saying, but I didn't get it. That's when Mitty came up to help.
Yeah, because the doctors, they told me that your mum's not getting it, right? And they kept on saying, you know, it's not looking good. It's not looking good. But, you know, it's not looking good. That doesn't mean that he's going to die.
I didn't know what he wanted. We didn't know what we wanted. Because we didn't get a chance to have that conversation about the important things. I did not understand how seriously ill he was. You know, when you're all in that emotional fog, the doctors just need to spell it out. He's not going to be here for very long. He's dying.
Our dad was in a retirement village. He was living independently, and he was one of those guys who was always Mr. Fix-It. He was fixing anything that was broken, was it glass or toys, or otherwise he'd be giving advice to the RSA, wouldn't he? Great sense of humour, always cracking jokes. And then he got lung cancer.
Well, our family decided that he'd come and live with Amber. The retirement place just didn't feel right.
Yeah.
I quit my job and I came to help Amber with Dad. Our younger brother lives in Brisbane, but even if he was here, he wouldn't be much use. He's the softie of the family.
We all have like different ways to cope, and my son was very good. He's only 24, but he would come along and he realised that it was really important to spend time with his papa. We had the hospice people come a lot. We had a really lovely nurse.
We got Dad one of those wrist alarms so that he could press the button in an emergency. But he kept getting confused and, you know, he'd be pushing the button. Some nights, you know, we were up 4 or 5 times with him.
The pain was really hard for us to watch. It just got more awful as time went by, and it was really awful for him, and it was very distressing for us.
He was on morphine, restless, awake at night. The last 2 or 3 weeks he was still sitting up in bed doing crosswords at night, so we knew his brain was okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was a nightmare actually, wasn't it? Because I was trying to make sure that he didn't have hallucinations, he wasn't feeling sick, that he was moderately comfortable. So the hospice nurse would come and, you know, they would do their best, but it was really very distressing.
Yeah, got to the point where Dad was so distressed, he just said, get the doctors, get the lawyers in, I just want to go. If there was any way he could have ended it, he would have. The last 3 months of his life, he spent a week in hospice care, but otherwise he was right here with us at home with visits from the hospice nurse.
Yeah, and I was actually really very happy with the hospice. They were very good generally, but that last 24 hours, that was very distressing, and that coloured everything for us, really, didn't it?
You know what they say, when it rains, it pours. Well, that night it just bucketed down. We lost power, so Dad's oxygen machine stopped working, but luckily we had a spare one. You know, the power's out for 24 hours. And if that wasn't worrying enough, the house alarm shorted and the screeching noise, it really upset Dad. It took the technician 3 hours to get here in the pouring rain.
Because you always think that their last breath is going to be like really peaceful, and that's what palliative care is all about. But then that's not That's not what happened.
No, I mean, you know, Dad's end of life, his last hours were really, really traumatic. Can you imagine? You know, you've got this hospice that's just been fantastic all throughout his care and his illness, but they don't have 24-hour home-based support.
So what happened was, like about 1:15 in the morning, I heard all this noise and I went into his room and he was in a coma. He was breathing, but it was very noisy. So Elaine came in and she was holding his hand. I called hospice at 2 in the morning and they said, oh, we don't do home visits. And I said, that was the first we'd ever heard about it. And they said to me, oh, well, you just get 2 different types of medication, put them in a syringe and give them to him. And
well, neither of us had ever given an injection before. I mean, he was a skeleton, all bone. Where would we stick the needle in? Well, this brave one here, she ended up giving him a subcutaneous injection in his arm.
Yeah, but so then he flinched, and I just am really haunted by that flinching.
You know, you try not to focus on the end of somebody's life because that's not the sum total of what they were. But this is what we remember. The way they go, it lingers. That's the hardest thing to deal with.
Whakaria mai, tori peka ki o, ti aho mai, ra roto i te pō. E kona au, ti tiro atu ai, ora mate, he au koe noho ai. Whakaria mai tauri peka ki o, ti